Hey, it's Mrs. Smeckens. We're starting a new reading skill series. I now want to work on teaching you how to readers make inferences. All right. And so let's just back up first. Recognize there's a few things on this chart already that we have background knowledge on. We've already learned that we have voices in our head and we don't want to be listening to that distracting voice, right? Okay, we learned that the two voices in our head have different, the two we want to listen to, have different purposes. The reading voice reads the details. It tells us what words the author said, what you can see in the visual or video, but the thinking voice puts them all together and tells you what it all means, right? So what the text says, and then what's the author really meaning? What does it all mean when you put it together? Okay, well, so we worked on that, and you need both voices in order to do this next skill. It's harder, it's bigger. It's called making an inference. So what is an inference? Well, first off, it's a new idea. Okay, so I'm going to add that. It's a new idea. An inference is a new idea. Okay, new to the text. The author never said it. You know how when you read super easy books, like if you have a younger brother or sister or you babysit or something, and you read super easy books, it's like, the boy saw the dog barked, the dog wagged his tail. Okay, so super simple text where the author just tells you everything and doesn't leave anything out and there's nothing to think about, and it's kind of boring, okay? Well, as you get older, the texts get more complex. And one of the things that makes them more complex is the author stops just saying every single thing and expects the reader is going to do some of the work. They give several details, they kind of paint a scene, they give you a lot of clues, but they expect the reader to kind of fill in the gaps, the reader to put the pieces together, the reader to put together new ideas. Authors imply things in text. Readers infer, okay? Authors put in clues to hint, to imply. Readers collect, check out, figure out what the clues mean in order to make an inference. Okay, hey, let me tell you one more thing. Infer is the verb, all right? It's not inferencing. Inferencing is not a word, all right? You're inferring or you're making an inference. Inference is a noun, inferring is a verb. Let's get that straight, all right? Build your vocab. Inferring, but not inferencing, all right? You don't sound smart because that's not even a word. All right, so now let's kind of put a little math to this. I know it's language arts, but we're going to put a little math to this, okay? And the first thing I want to do is say again that you need both voices to make an inference, all right? So I'm going to put a little plus sign in there, all right? Simple math, people. It's Mrs. Smeckens, all right? And I also want to be clear that you make an inference based on something you've read or viewed or heard. You need some kind of text. I know it's not always a book. It's not always print text even, right? It could be on a screen. But we'll go with the book just for the notion that you have to read information. Some kind of text is what's going to activate your reading voice. Your reading voice starts to collect clues, all right? And then your thinking voice puts them together, and bam, that is what's going to give you your inference. What's an inference? A new idea. Something the author never actually came out and said. He didn't tell it to you. He implied it. It's a new idea. Okay, so now wait a minute. Let's make a connection and clarify something. In our previous lesson series, we learned that you read a detail and can have a thought, and you might see another detail and have a thought. Detail, thought, detail, reading voice, thinking voice. This is what readers do. Ms. Smeckens, how is inferring, verb, how is inferring different than what we did in the last lesson? It's bigger. It's bigger. Do you remember the T chart? Okay, what the text says, what the text means, and that you can take notes. Remember, outside the text, you can jot down, I saw this detail and it made me think of, I saw this detail and it made you think of, It's kind of a tit for tat kind of thing, okay? That's just thinking voice thoughts. All right, we're bigger than that right now. You need to know how to do that, but now we got to blow it out of the water, you guys. Okay, so you are still going to be thinking. Yes, your thinking voice is still going to talk to you, okay? But it's got a bigger job. An inference is bigger than just a thought, okay? And what makes it bigger is that you need multiple details. The author gave you this detail and this detail, this clue, this phrase, this picture or visual detail, this. It's 10, 12 different details. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's bigger. It's not just a thought, all right? Read this and like, yep, I know about that. Yep, that happened to me. Yep, she's happy. No, we're so much bigger than that, you guys, all right? When it's an inference, you can have little thoughts, but what I want to work on in this lesson series is how authors imply ideas by using many details, and they expect you to be able to figure out all those thoughts. So I'm going to put several little green details up here to remind you this is part of what makes an inference so much bigger and different. Okay, so as we kind of think about this idea, I want to show you what it would look like. And one of the first things that we need to do is recognize that in order to collect multiple details, all of the clues the author might give us, we have to look carefully and closely at the text, whatever the text is, paragraphs, pages, video, visual, map, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, we have to look closely. And when we think of looking closely at something, I think of a magnifying glass. All right, so let's look on our screen, a magnifying glass. All right, look, I made one. I mean, just a paper one. I just took that, printed out. And what readers need to do is look closely at parts of a text. Look just here for any possible clues. Look just here. You guys, an inference is hard because it's big, because you have to put multiple pieces, juggle multiple pieces together. Well, if you're just looking at something just kind of blasé, just kind of looking at it in general and big and broad, you might see one or two things and say, I don't get it. All right, that's not going to cut it, all right? You've got to be able to look closely and say, oh, look, and. So that idea of really zooming in on something is what I'm talking about. Okay, no, I'm not going to make you make a magnifying glass, all right? Remember our little, I made you make that, didn't I? But I'm not going to make you make this. But we're going to use that mentality, okay? And so I want to show you some text, and I'm going to do it first. I want to show you what making an inference looks and feels like, and employ this strategy of zooming in closely and collecting every little clue the author gives you, okay? And our text is going to be visual. I actually found a bunch of editorial cartoons. And so here's the first one, okay? And you're just looking at it in general, okay? And over here, my reading voice has to collect the details. What do you know about the setting? I just need every clue I can find. But if I'm trying to make an inference ultimately about what's this about, I can't just, let's see this, no, zoom in. So I'm actually going to zoom in. Here we go. This is what I mean by zoom in. Like super close, people. Super close. Okay, so let's see what we see. Okay, I'll do the thinking. You just listen. Okay, my reading voice says, well, I see a beautiful blue sky. I see trees because of the reflection. My thinking voice is saying it must be a little sunny right now. I see umbrellas. I see a little hut. I see what appears to be sand just because of the coloring. Plus, everybody seems to be wearing bathing suits. So my thinking voice is saying that's sand. And so I'm thinking they're at a beach. Okay. And so I see that. Now I'll zoom out and I see a beach and I see people. I see people in water, a couple people in water. Okay, it's a beach. Okay, wait a minute, you guys. That's not the kind of inference we're talking about. The question isn't what is the scene, what is the setting? No, it's going to be much bigger. We're looking at a more complex thinking here. Let's look over to the right for a second and consider. Let's now, with those details, and we'll keep looking at details, what elements of the scene are typical. What would you expect at a beach? Okay, Ms. Smeckett's going to do the thinking here. Okay, so what would I expect? I would expect people in bathing suits. I see a lot of people in bathing suits. I would expect lawn chairs. Yep. I would expect, some people are reading. Good. I would expect people to be in the water. Yep, absolutely. I expect those things. I expect umbrellas. If we're at the beach, I expect a nice day. I expect, I don't expect, but I'm not surprised that there's a hut, probably got some concessions in there or something. Okay, now let's look over here. What elements of the scene are atypical, not typical? What surprises you? Let me say it another way. What do you notice? Everything authors do. In this case, artists do, cartoonists do, illustrators do. Everything they do is on purpose. Nothing is by chance. They're just wondering if you picked up on it. You got to closely read. So we're going to zoom in. What is atypical? Let me do the thinking. You just follow along with me. Atypical. Okay, well, I see people in chairs. That's typical. Okay, adult. Well, I don't see any kids. That's atypical. It's a beach. You know what? I don't see any sand castles. That surprises me. I don't see anybody playing beach volleyball. They're all just laying there, which isn't, not appropriate, not typical, but nobody's moving. Okay. In fact, let me look down here at the water for a second. Let me get that off blue for you. Let me just zoom out. How about that? Okay. How about the fact that there's only 2 people in the water and they're not even moving? Let's zoom in. We're just seeing it. They're just standing there in the water. Atypical. Okay. What else would I expect? I would expect people to be reading. That's typical. I would expect some people to have a sunburn. Look at that. Let's zoom in on their bellies. The bellies here. Okay. I would expect that we'd have some sunburns. Okay. Or suntans or whatever. Let's think about that. Okay. My thinking voice is telling me that how do you get a sunburn? Well, beaches are relaxing. So you're supposed to not, necessarily work too hard. Relax, take a nap. And my thinking voice is telling me when you take a nap in the sun, you'll have a shadow if you haven't moved in a while. And it creates a white patch in your otherwise suntan or burned skin. And so that's typical. I would expect that. What I wouldn't expect, what's atypical, and I'm thinking about right now as I zoom in, is where their tan is, what their tan is. I mean, I've seen tans from some people where it's like because their belly rolled, you know what I mean? And so then they stretch and then you can see the white part, the lines because of the rolls. All right, well, this isn't that. Let's look closely. What is this? I see a rectangle. Remember, it has to be made by something that was in front of you. Let's look at what these people are doing. Look what's in front of them. I'll zoom out because it's a little pixelated. What's in front of them? Look at their arms. See? So that's because they were sitting in their chair, like these people, on their cell phone. And they clearly hadn't moved in a while. I haven't necessarily seen that kind of sunburn before. So here's the big question. I've collected all those details. Have you seen it? I mean, I've mentioned a lot of things I can see. I can touch in the photo, in the visual, so that means they're reading voice details. I can touch them, I can see them, then they're reading voice. And I've put together several of those thoughts, but now I want to step back and I want to take all of the thoughts I've been having and I want to make a big new inference. Let's look here back on the screen. What point is the cartoonist making? Okay, well, I'm going to talk to myself here. This is all thinking voice at this point. I'm going to talk to myself here. And so, that if you go to the beach, you'll get a sunburn. But we already knew that. That's not a new point. If you go to the beach, don't move, you'll get a sunburn, I guess is what I mean. That it's this beautiful day and you're at the beach, but they're all just sitting there. They're not taking advantage of the water. They're not taking advantage of the sand. They're not socialized. They didn't bring their children unless they drowned in the water. I don't know where all their kids are. It's like, why are you even at the beach? You could be sitting like that at home. I guess the point is, to me, that the author's trying to make is, why did you come? If you're going to come to the beach, take advantage of the beach. This is not taking advantage of the beach. This is sitting on your cell phone. You don't even know you're at the beach. Did you see it? That's what I mean by a big new idea. Do you see how this is so much bigger than read and have a thought, read and have a thought, read and have a... Oh, you need to be able to collect thoughts and think about them. So we needed to start there in the last skill series, but now we're going to blow it out of the water and we're going to really collect lots of details and figure out, so what's the point? What am I supposed to get out of this? All right, let's try this next one together. I got another one of these. Okay. All right, let's look at the screen. All right, and our reading voice, just what's happening in the cartoon. All right, let me zoom in. What's happening? Let's just look at it in general. All right, I see a cell phone. I see a person. All right, it's 2 frames. All right, what else do you see? Cell phone, person in 2 frames. I see dialogue bubbles. So, and they're coming from the cell phone in the second one, and they're coming from the guy in the first one. Okay, so they're clearly 2 characters talking to each other. Okay, so let's now zoom in. All right, you're going to do this one. What do you know about the man? Well, let's look at him in terms of just what he says in the first frame. Okay, what do we know about the man? He says, fetch my emails. He says, navigate to John's house. Ooh, do you see these exclamation points? What's your thinking voice telling you about that? Fetch my emails. Navigate to John's house. Show me the news. Send this photo to Lynn. Okay, just look at the man. That's all the words he said. Okay, well, so we know he's kind of bossy, right? Is that what you're thinking, bossy? Okay, what else do you know about the man? Let's look at the visual clues now. Look at how he's standing. Look at his posture. You ever had someone do that to you? What is, this is like, what does this mean? Like somebody who's in charge, all right? Your boss, okay? Demanding, okay? Hand on hip, pointing, like blaming you, making sure you do it, right? Okay, now wait a minute. This is 2 frames. And the question is, what do you know about the man? Well, let's look at the man in the second one. Here he is. You scroll down. Okay, he's way down here. Okay, well, what do we know? Well, now he's on the ground. He's kneeling on the ground. His head is all the way down on the ground. And he's saying, yeah, yes, master. He's like stuttering. Yes, master. What does that tell you? What your thinking voice is telling you? He's acting like a slave? Yeah. Master, slave, right? Okay, so in the first frame, it was like he was the master. In the second frame, it's like he's the slave. He's the subordinate. He's the one that has to, the servant, do the work. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom back out. And the question is, what do you know about the cell phone? Okay, so let's go back to that first one. Okay, first frame, and zoom in. Let's just look at the cell phone in this first one. Okay, all of this was the man. Now we're going to look at the cell phone. Okay, and look what he says. He says, yes, master. Okay, so he's stuttering. Okay, look at his eyebrows. That's not by accident. Every detail, nothing's by accident. What do you notice? They're up, like a question. Open. Look at how he's standing. You do that. How's he standing? Where do you see people standing like this? Why would someone stand like, what is this? Like a butler? Servant? Why the stutter? Yes, master. Afraid, okay? You know someone else is more important than you. Okay, so now let's look at the cell phone. Look at the cell phone in the second frame. Okay, and the cell phone, he says, look at all those exclamation points. Charge me. Give me some Wi-Fi now. New email. Read. Answer this call. A restaurant. Check in. No, that's what he said. That's how he said it. I didn't make it up. It gave me exclamation points. I'm sure that wasn't by accident. Let's look now at this cell phone. Look at this. What do you notice about the eyebrows? What do you notice about someone whose eyebrows are like that? Are they happy with you? Probably not. Look, he's got that same stance the man did in the first frame. That whole pointing at you, hand on hip. Okay, well, now wait a minute. Let's keep backing up. What do you know about both the man and the cell phone? What is in common? What do you know about both? Okay, they both can be demanding. They can both feel like a slave. What are you thinking? What are you thinking about the value of cell phones right now? impact it has on your life. Sometimes it can be helpful. Yeah, it can do things for you. You're the master. But it can also kind of drag you down, right? And you feel like, another email. Oh, another assignment from my teacher. Right? Okay, no, wait, we're not done. Oh, no. We have collected a lot of details and we have had a lot of thoughts. But here's my question. My question is, what is the point the artist is making? What's he trying to tell us? You know what? We haven't looked at this one part up here. The first frame where the man is the master says, in your mind. And the second frame where the cell phone's the master, it says, in reality. What's the point that the cartoonist is making? That we think what about cell phones? We think we need them. We think they make our life easier. We think, okay? But in reality, what's the cartoonist telling us? What's his perspective? In reality, we're a slave to them. Well done. You just did it. You just looked at the text closely, carefully. Now, I didn't make you use a magnifying glass, but I essentially created that same effect because we zoomed in. Some of you were just like, yeah, it's a cell phone, and you were done. Yep, no. That's not how you're going to go about making an inference. You got to lean in. You got to just attack this thing. And you got to first just, what do I see? Reading voice. And then you got to, well, what do I really know now? And you got to look at the words and you got to look at the visuals. Whenever you have visuals, you want to look at those. Nothing's by accident. Okay, so here's if you were in Mrs. Smecken's class, here's what we would do. I've got a couple more of these. Okay, I've got this one, and this one. And I want you to read closely, zoom in on them. Read closely what each of those texts says. Some of them will have words too, but look at this part, section by section. Zoom in like a magnifying glass. And then I really want you to start to think about the questions I have under the thinking voice. And then I want you to look at, so what's the point? What is it the author, the cartoonist in this case, is trying to tell me, the reader? Readers make inferences, and it's more than just seeing a detail and having a thought. It's a collection of details and a collection of deep thoughts, a combination. This is what produces an inference. If you were in Mrs. Smecken's class, you would now read the next three editorial cartoons, but your teacher might have a better idea.